Welcome to 2 cents short of a dollar, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your hosts. That's Motiz, and I'm Rue. Today, I want to talk about Jaron Boots Ennis after his dominating performance over at Stanionis. Now, coming into that fight, we each had it, predicted it to be a competitive fight. I think a lot of people thought Stanionis was, maybe rightfully so, the second best welterweight in the division. I think hands down it was an impressive performance, but I'm going to ask you on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you rate the performance and why?
I'll probably rate it a 9 out of 10. I'm gonna give him a 9 out of 10. And the reason why I rate it so high, I'm rating it within the pocket of all the circumstances following this fight, right? At least for me, I rated Stanionis pretty high going into this fight. His durability, his punch output. I thought he was gonna be a force to be reckoned with. We knew that Jerome was gonna get touched up, which he was getting touched up with, jabs and straight rights to us this fight. But he also made Stanionis miss a lot. More importantly, one thing that is always up for debate is whether or not, one puncher is punching harder than the other puncher, how durable they are, right? The intangibles that we can't really see on paper. And, the way Boots early on went to the body and started, and the way he was styling on them too. I'm not even gonna lie. Like when you fighting a person and you start going and start adding some of these shenanigans in the ring, whether or not you start fronting on them, it adds a layer of, oh, this fight is easy to you. You know what I mean? Like you're not really in danger, even though you might be. But just the fact that he was able to front and style on them in the fight and able to be as successful as he was, to me, it didn't look like it was much of a difficult fight for Boots. It's crazy because Karen gave him more of a fight. And you can argue that, he probably struggled a bit more with Abinesian than he did with Stanionis, but those uppercuts landing, and he ultimately, stopped them, so I was definitely impressed. I rated a 9 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah. I may be overreacting here, but I'm going to go full blown 10 out of 10. Watching them, they didn't look like they belonged in the same ring, to be honest with you. Just like you said, the things that Boots was doing, I didn't expect that against Stanionis, right? So prior to the fight, some people were saying this was going to be like Romain Villa 2.0, and I'm like, nah, no way. Like not Stanionis. I had respect for Stanionis. Granted, I had Boots winning the fight, but I just thought Stanionis would put up more resistance, and it seemed like there was no resistance. It looked like they didn't belong in the ring together. We knew Boots had the skill, but I thought the output, like I thought Stanionis probably have the higher output, constantly walking Boots down, forcing Boots to adjust. Boots' adjustments kind of seemed like he was just playing around, like, oh, let me see if I can do this. Let me see if I can do that. So man, it was just like levels to the performance. And I just think it was an amazing performance. 10 out of 10 for me. And what I thought was very impressive, he got hit some, but he rolled a lot of the shots, and the head movement was on point. Stanionis missed a lot. Like sometimes he was really just swinging at air, and I think people had the questions of, is Boots' defense a little shaky? Does he get hit too much? From what I'm seeing now, at least at welterweight, Romain Villa considered a puncher. Stanionis, maybe not like a one-shot puncher, but people think Stanionis has some pop to him. It seems that if Boots respects you enough, then he's not going to let you just touch him up. It seems like maybe, what's the guy's name? That Terrence Crawford glove, Avenesian, right? See, like maybe he just had no respect for Avenesian's power and say, I can stay in here because you can't do nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? Maybe even the same thing with Karen Shukujan. Like, you guys can't do anything to me. But it seemed like there was a little bit more respect for Stanionis, so he was making Stanionis miss. And I mean, if that's the reason he was getting touched in those two fights, then hey, by all means, if you have no respect for them, you're just gonna their power, you're gonna do that, then I really can't question it,
Yeah, I definitely think, and also the corner as well, right? I think the corner have respect for, Stanionis, even telling Boots at times, hey, don't go yet, just still touch him up, use the jab, and whereas I believe his last fight, they was like, yo, just get him out of there. Like, get him out of there. So it's definitely a different tune. And not only Boots, but the team as well. Their approach and how they see these fights kind of just goes up another level at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's definitely an impressive performance. I mean, what do you think about Boots at the 147-pound division, right? Do you think he ends up staying? Do you think he moves up? Or a better question, do you think he should stay to try to make the fights and become undisputed? Or do you believe that it's his best option to move up to 154?
He just had that fight in April. So that's April. I mean, I know training camp is hard, training camp is grueling, but the fight he didn't take much punishment. I think Boots can turn around and fight in August and then fight in December. So if he could get like Norman and Barrios back to back in either order, if he can do that, I think he should stay and fight for undisputed. Now, if what I suspect is going to happen does happen, and maybe some of these negotiations start getting drawn out, demands start being a little weird, like things that you're not going to get to drag out the fight, then I say, move. If he doesn't feel like he's in a position to become undisputed at 147 by early 2026, the first quarter of 2026, I would say move to 54. I don't think guys really are going to want to fight him because not only was he more skilled than Stanionis, his size looked like a huge issue. Like he was knocking Stanionis around the ring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So being that big, because he's a big welterweight, I've said this to you from the moment I saw him. Like, how'd that dude making welterweight? It's a big welterweight and he's a skilled welterweight. I don't know if guys are going to want to fight him at welterweight.
Yeah, I don't see so either, right? Like, I don't see Brian Norman Jr. fighting him. Absolutely not. I think they're going to try to wait him out. I don't see Mario Barrios in his team. Barrios might want the fight, but I don't think his team's going to put him in there with Jaron Ennis unless they're getting paid a lot of money. And Eddie Hearn already made it clear they're not looking to take any more pay cuts. So I agree with you. I think his
Yeah.
best option is probably going to have to be to move up.
Yeah, but now if he moves up per se, I mean, would you say he should go straight into a title fight, or do you think he should fight one of the contenders? I think a good contender, obviously, out there is, I mean, at this point, Virgil's still a contender, right? So obviously, the Virgil fight can be revisited. You have Sergey Boachuk, you have Madrimov, right? Do you think he should fight one of those guys, or do you think he needs to immediately go for a title shot if he moves up at 54?
I think he should go up and challenge a title holder.
A title
I
holder?
think he should definitely move up and challenge, especially if he, barring any injuries, I think he should move up and immediately challenge a champion at
Yeah.
154 pounds to make an immediate statement, if I'm being honest.
Now,
That's how I feel. Depending on the climate then, right? Because if the belts are more spread out and more,
yeah,
that's what I
because
suspect.
I don't think Terrence has been officially stripped yet, but we know that fight's not going to happen, right?
Right.
So it would have to be Fundora or Bakram Mertazle. I can't pronounce the last name, but you know who I'm talking about, the guy
Mhm.
who stopped Tim Zoo. So I guess those two would be the title holders. I mean, I would welcome those fights, but to be honest, I would want to see him take an adjustment fight first. I don't want to call it a tune-up when you're fighting guys that are also contenders, but I would say an adjustment fight to the weight. See how you feel. um, for example, Virgil, and I know Boots is not Virgil and Virgil is not Boots, right? But Virgil moved up, big strong guy at 47, strong at 54. But then we seen what happened in the Boachuk fight, right? Even though Virgil got the W on the scorecards, just those guys are bigger, they're a bit
Mhm.
stronger. Some of the punches that you kind of were walking through previously, it doesn't there's a difference. The 7 pound makes a difference, right? So we seen Boachuk put Virgil down twice. So I'm just saying, like, these guys, they're a little bigger, they're a little stronger, so we kind of have to see, like, are you just going to tank the punches like an Avanesian or a Karen Shukajan? We don't really know yet, so that's why I think he should take an adjustment fight just to get a bit acclimated to the weight. You know what I mean?
That is a good point. That is a good point because then at that point, then he can go ahead and like, you know what, now I'm going to challenge someone else. I mean, it definitely could happen. I was just thinking from a standpoint of like you want leverage. If you want to collect the belts as quickly as possible
Mhm.
and leverage you being a unified champion, kind of like what the previous predecessors have done, like maybe like what Terrence Crawford did when he moved up to challenge a Jeff Horn, right? So like
Mhm.
if he can kill two birds with one stone,
Yeah.
right, in moving up, that would probably be his best option. But
Yeah.
at least if you can quickly go out, challenge someone, beat them, and take their belt, now that puts you in the running, not to more so earn more money, but also kind of get that fight maybe with Virgil down the line, right? But I'm not mad if he goes up and fights like you
Yeah.
said, not necessarily tune up, but maybe a notable name
Yeah.
that is still somewhat of a threat, that is probably a non-title holder.
Mhm.
It can work his way just so he can get acclimated with the weight, right? So
Yeah. I mean, I would personally love to see the Boachuk fight. I think Jaron's going to be favorited. I think Jaron's going to win, but I guess it would be kind of the style that I expected from Stanionis, and then it would give me an opportunity to see, like, obviously I think Boots is more skilled than both of them, right? But
mhm.
was the gap that ridiculously wide also due to the size? I think, him and Boachuk are going to be a bit more comparable in size. Boachuk's going to come forward, a lot of pressure. Like I said, Boots is very skilled, so I would see Boots winning that fight. But then just seeing how he reacts to, a guy that's a bit bigger, a bit stronger than the guys you've been fighting previously. So I would like to see like one of those fights, and then if he can get the title fight next, then move into the title fight.
Right.
Yeah. But so if he goes to 54, though, I heard Breadman say this. Breadman said he will be favorited over everybody. He said except Terrence Crawford, because Terrence Crawford is technically still a belt holder there, even though we believe he'll probably be stripped once he moves up to fight Canelo. But if Boots went to 54 tomorrow, do you think he would be favorited over all the fighters at 54?
If he was to fight Virgil, I don't think he'll probably be favored in that matchup. I think it might be close. It might be closer to 50-50. But I think Virgil has made a name for himself, that the
Mm-hmm.
boxing community isn't just made up of African Americans watching fights, right? Because typically you have a certain ethnic group that supports the ethnic group fighter, right? And I think Virgil has a strong backing, within his respective ethnic group. So I think if you're talking about like the odds of that fight happening, with Virgil being the guy that been at 154, has some tests, some tough
Mm-hmm.
tests, but he's been winning fights regardless. I think that fight, I don't know if he's the best, or I don't think he'll be rated clearly superior to Virgil or the favorite going into that fight against Virgil. That's probably the
Oh,
only fighter, in my honest opinion. Maybe Fondora. I mean, but I don't know. People aren't really high on Fondora,
yeah,
to be
it,
honest,
it, it it's, it's
So
it's tricky. Fondora's tricky because he's been knocked out by
yeah.
Mendoza, but
So
obviously,
people ain't gonna be big on him. Yeah, exactly. But
yeah,
I would say Virgil's
that's a
probably
tough
the only
fight for
one.
anybody because,
Yeah,
like, I'm not saying Boots can't stop Fundora, but part of it, him getting knocked out versus Mendoza, is incumbent on him making the wrong mistake at the wrong time,
right.
right? You know what I mean? Because Fundora was clearly winning that fight.
Yeah,
And if they were to fight again tomorrow, I would pick Fundora over Mendoza. I would probably pick him every time they fight. And he may potentially make the wrong mistake again, but Mendoza didn't look like the better fighter, even though he got the W. So I know that's a weird thing on Fundora's record. Then the Tim Zoo thing, some people see it different way. I think people kind of argue it whenever it's beneficial for them. To me, I've been consistently saying it looked like Tim Zoo was levels ahead of Fundora until the cut.
yeah,
But I know,
right.
some people kind of use it to bash, Tim Zoo. So I mean, Fundora's a tough fight for anybody. Just stylistically, the dude is 6'6" at 154 pounds. So I don't think it's gonna be an easy fight for anybody.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Let me see. And I guess 54 and Montes Stanionis, got to show him some respect. He was a champion. So what do you see next for Montes Stanionis?
I think he stays at 147. Obviously, he's gonna stay there, and he's gonna probably go back to the drawing board, take another fight with a non-champion, and then
Yeah.
probably look to challenge one of the champions already to kind of be a two-time world champion.
Yeah.
Um, we'll see.
I'd like to see him fight Blair Cobbs.
Black Cobbs ain't taking that. After he gave him nightmares and put up spar sessions, he
Yo,
not taking that.
the way he spoke about Stanionis
Yo,
and the sparring they had, I have to see it live. I would like to see him fight Blair Cobbs. I think that's a good fight.
I want to see what Blake Cobbs has to say about this Boots performance. That's what I
Yeah,
want to see, because he's
yeah,
the
yeah,
way
yeah,
he talk. Yo, I realized like, dang, like now I can't take that back. I made a video on that, and
yeah,
now if I go back now, I clearly sound like I'm crazy, So you
yeah,
gotta give, Boots his credit at that point, So
yeah. And then last thing on this topic, Stanionis, right? I think let's say Boots moves on and 47, is kind of open for who's the man at 47. But Ryan's entering 47. Let's say Devin enters 47. Let's say Tio enters 47. Would you favor those three guys versus Stanionis?
I don't know about Devin Haney. I don't know. Devin Haney is a little weird one, but I would definitely favor Ryan. I would definitely favor Ryan because of Ryan's size and natural ability. And he's a puncher, and I think it's going to translate well at the 147-pound division. I also favor I don't know, Tio. Depending on what Tio we get, I'll also favor Tio as well.
Tio fights very well against people who come forward. Tio's very good on the back foot. And Stanionis will come forward.
He'll come forward. I just got to see how like the punching power really translate and whether or not, because that's a big difference, right? Like that's like you coming up 7 pounds from 140 to 147. That's like a huge jump now versus the 5-pound increment in the previous weight classes. So, but yeah, I'll favor those two over Stanionis.
Okay, nice. Make sure you guys jump in the comment section. Tell us what you think about the landscape at 147. What do you think Boots should do? Should he stay at welterweight? Should he move up to 154 pounds? Who would you like to see him challenge at 154 pounds? Make sure you like, comment, subscribe.